Item number 11, general items. Yuba City Landscape Maintenance District number 1, Stabler Lane Garden Highway area. Yuba City Lighting and Landscape Maintenance Districts number 2, 3, 4, 5, and Town Center and 69 subdivisions throughout Yuba City, and Yuba City Lighting and Landscape Maintenance District number 6, Commercial District Resolution of Intent. And I have a request here to have two of our council members
recuse ourselves.
yes, and if you could identify.
We're recusing ourselves because we live in this area, so I don't think it's appropriate for us to vote on this thing.
All right.
So.
All right. We'll wait for them to leave the room, and then we'll take a report from staff. Go ahead, Ben.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council remaining. The item I have before you, it's an annual function that engineering does with the other departments to continue the assessments for the landscape maintenance districts throughout the city of Yuba City. Annually required by law, we are to file an engineer's report and evaluate each district and determine the expenses and the revenues and set a levy for the ongoing year. So currently what's before you is a resolution direct filing the annual report and then a resolution of intention to order those improvements, which basically sets that levy amount and a cost, anticipated cost of expenses. There's a pretty big area, districts 1 through 6, and they're made up of multiple areas throughout the region. It takes care of the landscaping of the street trees, the irrigation, street lighting, walls, and some miscellaneous things in those designated areas. That's the primary function. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. The majority of the raises went to District 4 and 5 this year. The other areas weren't increased based on due to the existing reserve balance, and also that the COLA, the inflation index that we use, stayed flat for this year. So, with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Any questions of staff?
So, with that, I recommend that you adopt the following resolutions as stated in A and B, and set the public hearing for August 18, 2015, 6 o'clock.
Ben, I think the only question I really have, and it generally comes up, is the maintenance of these areas conducted by outside sources other than the city in most cases? Could you go through,
So currently we have a 3-year contract where we put out a request for proposals, and the current contract is Crossroads. They're, I believe, a Sacramento landscape company. My understanding is that their contract will end this fiscal year, and we will put Parks Department, Community Services, will put out a new contract, a new request for proposals to see who will be the low bidder, and then they will come back to you for authorization to enter into that. There's some anticipation that the price will go up, is why we're kind of keeping the reserves healthy. Are trying to keep the reserves healthy, just with some of those anticipated costs. Also, in districts 4 and 5, they're anticipating to really go in there this year and focus on doing some irrigation improvement work and focusing on replacing street trees and some of the some work that might need to be tended better. They're going to put a new focus on really making those areas look good.
Yeah, that's the general area I was headed to, and I'm glad that you addressed that. Is we've had some deferred maintenance in those areas. I think over the last at least 5 years that I'm aware of, and some of the other comments that I'm getting are some of the limb fallouts that we've been having recently with some of the trees, the more mature trees. As the heat hit, we were having some snap outs that occurred during that period of time, and so just looking at how can we prevent that, and I realize some of that's irrigation related and other issues that maybe tree trimming and some other things that can be done in the future. So I would look forward to what the future contracts look like in the attempt to really bring these areas to more, I guess, attention and more care.
Well, and I'd like to piggyback on that also is that when we look at the lighting and landscape, many times it's just we've focused on when we've let the contracts to do this work that has been based on pulling weeds, trimming bushes, and that type of thing, and that we really haven't addressed the infrastructure, the irrigation, those types of things, and how we're going to address keeping those working properly. And I think as we look forward to putting this out to bid this year, that I would like to see that we would identify a scope of work, because in the past we've just kept going down. We're going with vendors who will undercut the last person that we weren't happy with, and we're just ending up with less and less quality as we go. So I would like to identify, when we put that RFP together, is to have a scope of work and then set it up where we can manage that scope of work and make sure that we're getting what we're paying for. And even though it does cost a little bit more, we've just been undercutting ourselves over the years, and just because we've been trying to compete on price and not deal with what's going to look good for the city.
We'll definitely note that and take it into consideration, so we can address that when we come back to you.
All right, thank you.
I'd like to call out that on Districts 4 and 5, with that renewed interest to really make that District 4 and 5, which is kind of the North Stabler area, and then 5 is sporadic, is that we're increasing the one-time cost to those districts. If you can see, typically we spend about $110 in 4. We're planning on increasing it about $45,000 in spending this year, and $60,000 in District 5 to really come in there and do that infrastructure improvements and tree trimming to get those up to par this year. And so unfortunately that reflects in the cost, but we're trying to use the reserve balances to ease into that.
All right. Any other comments or questions for staff? Entertain a motion.
I'll move the item.
I'll second.
All right. Any further comments? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. So if we could have our two other council members come back, we'll move on to item number 12. It's the same story, just a different location in town.
Was adopted. Turbine.
Yes. All right, Ben, go ahead.